Okay, folks, we are live. Welcome to our Power Thing, Rejuvenating Your Amazing Mind training as we move into our question and answer mode. Danielle, I see you. Sam, I see you. Mary and Ed and Richard and Laura and Dr. Ekman and Layla and Janice, Michael Anders. We're going to move right into Q&A.
Q&A session has started.
We welcome your thinking, rejuvenating your amazing mind. And Carla, we're already in and live. Hopefully she can still come in, and she is here. This is our Wednesday, September 10, 2025. This is our 7:30 Eastern Time edition, and I'm your moderator, Stanley Green. I'm joined on our platform where we're streaming YouTube, on LinkedIn. We have Leslie Flowers and Carla Hill and George Clark and others. Will be bringing you up sometime in the future. This is an experiment. We've actually gone with more folks on the platform than we've ever had. And and next week we may stretch that a bit. We can invite up to and have up to 10 people, so the rules say. So we'll actually test all of that. So again, appreciate you. This is a real special day because we're going to deviate a little bit from the format in terms of our morning and our evening session. So typically we have a topic, and today we're going to focus on the resiliency of a company that I'm sure we all know, going back to our childhood and our parents' childhood, Hasbro brands and Hasbro company, the history, any takeaways we shared with you in the video. So love to get your thoughts about how you came away with from watching the video, and how that relates to what we focus on with power thinking. So love to get your thoughts about that. We have people already joining us on Jones from Thailand, who is an AI specialist. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you. LinkedIn user, just as LinkedIn you. Thank you for joining us. So I want to give you a little background. First of all, we are talking Hasbro brands this morning. This evening, we're doing something groundbreaking for us. We've never done anything like this. We're partnering with Omar M, one of our Power Thinking members, is using our app last week. George used the app. Carla used the app, and we want to make sure you can do that as well. Let's see if we can change our screen so that as comments come up, you can still see people. And we'll do that. We got big pictures and the Hasbro brands in the middle. So tonight we have a game called Zoom Predict. It's kind of a takeoff of Jeopardy. This will be in the same format, except it will be who are part of Power Thinking, who will be the questions and answers will be Power Thinking and reinforcing. We'll be testing who is well versed in the Power Thinking and strengths and skills. So this evening will be Leslie Flowers, all Power Thinking members, Natasha Charles, and Calvin Patterson. So you've heard those names. You'll see them in action. So it'll be interesting to see who comes out winner there. Let's see when we put our little comments up. Yeah, this is much better. So we're not taking over someone's picture. So we have Chisholm who's saying hello everyone on LinkedIn. So appreciate. Why did I select something like Hasbro brands and the history of Hasbro as we focus on reinforcing our resilient skills? Well, because and something interesting came up. And by the way, hit that *6 if you want to participate over the phone lines. We're going to have comments from George and Carla and Leslie. Have any thoughts you'd like to share? Feel free to do that. Crowd in LinkedIn. So again, feel free to share your thoughts. Select something like Hasbro and show you a video about the history of Hasbro. Thoughts about your takeaways about that company in general, but particularly as it relates to resilience. What did you notice? Notice anything about Hasbro and their need for resilience and their obvious use of resilience to last now over 100 years? So why would I select Hasbro? I'm working on a project with someone, one of my teammates, that we're going to be interviewing our new head coach in November. So we're putting that event together. And the person that was helping to orchestrate this came out of the class of 1970. And we intend to get the announcement out in newsletters for all the classes. And she sent a sample of her newsletter from her class of 1970. And it had a picture of a guy. There were some other things mentioned, and there was a picture of a guy. And unfortunately, he passed away in June. So I thought, that's too bad. And then he went on to talk about him. And his name is Alan Hassenfeld. I thought, oh, okay. Alan Hassenfeld. Chairman, CEO of Hasbro. That's interesting. And of course, then I look up Hasbro and saw that and I found it was founded by three brothers in Nigeria, the Hassenfeld brothers. So I thought, wait a minute, we just take names for granted, right? They're iconic names, and you have Mattel, you have Hassenfeld brothers, and that's how the name came about. It was from the Hassenfeld, and of course, BROS, Bros, and they just said Hasbro. They were Hasbro initially, and then Hasbro Industries, and then ultimately just Hasbro. Company that was selling textile remnants. That's what they were doing out of Rhode Island. And it was 9 years before they did something and sold something that was certainly more known to us. And they started with doctors and nurses sets. But it was in 1952 that they came away with the most iconic toy. Something very simple, but I remember as a child, and that was Mr. Potato Head. And then moving on, there was G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, and through acquisitions of various other iconic toys. I remember Kenner, though, and I remember Kenner because when I was a kid, it was 5 boys, one girl. My little sister had her Easy Bake Oven, and I remember that was made. So things that we certainly can understand and connect with from way back. It's interesting how these companies start and how they evolve, and that is necessary if a company is going to survive. And one of the things I want to mention is that during the 70s, moving along, and in the 70s, they had huge losses, huge debt, $2.5 million losses. This is where other companies may decide to follow out of business, but they were able to move through. We take these companies successful companies, but there are times when we have those bumps. So I'd like to get some thoughts from the folks that we have here with us in studio. LinkedIn. So as we move along, Nick, good to see you. Thank you. And who else I see there? And then we have Olu. So hit that *6 if you're in the audience. Person who has not joined us and has, we appreciate you taking the try and getting in. We'll start with George Clark, a long time, at least 5 years. And George, what were your, maybe in general, but in the resilience of Hasbro? Welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Stan. Good morning, Power Thinking family. And again, I'm honored, to have the opportunity to be on the platform. And Stan, as I looked at the video and just reflected, it just made me appreciate the importance of a family. Looking at the video and realizing that it was a mission with a family focus. You know what I mean? And from that vision, they were able to appreciate the importance of family, but in addition, being able to have that vision to be able to pass on that history. And when we talk about history, there's a saying that history has but one honorable purpose, is to train the student to be a responsible handler of power. So there's power that we have in our dwelling place in terms of who we are. And I think the beautiful thing for me was to even look at it with regards to the power thinking family. When we talk about resiliency, what I mean, the ability to be able to bounce back, what I mean, from whatever the situation that you may have been in or feel that you're in. But I truly appreciate being a part of the power thinking family, because they said, what, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And so I think in this aspect, it gives me great appreciation to be connected with that. So when I look at the video, I think about ancestors, you know what I mean? And there was one legendary mentor of mine who's an ancestor, Coach John Chaney. And the reason why I bring up his name, because part of who I am was the concepts, was the things that he taught. You know what I mean? Not so much, again, from academia, but in terms of the culture of wealth. And they say culture, culture, and again, I'll just put it in this form: culture, um, wealth, promotes positive mental health. And so as we think about positive thinking, what keeps me focused to realize that there's so much to be grateful for. And so as I think about, the change of the name from the Hassenfeld brothers to Hasbro, and we look at toys, we play games. I saw Monopoly, was something again that was part of their, what I mean, cultivation from a standpoint of being able to look at games. But Stan, is more than games. It's an experience. And so sometimes these games that we play, you may not think have a lot of validity in terms of developing who we are, but just the experience to be able to sit across the table with a child, with anyone, to be able to partake in that game. But it was more than a game, it was an experience. And I think that we all probably can relate to that in terms of just the things that we have learned, in our lifetime, but more importantly, realizing how are we passing it on to others. And I think that that's what positive, thinking corp is all about. And I'm just great to be a part of the family, if that resonates. I'm done, Stan.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, George. Really appreciate it. Carla, let's go to you. Mention where you're joining us from, and thank you for joining us again. I know you'll be traveling and be this evening, but your thoughts about Hasbro and the resiliency of Hasbro.
Yes, originally born and raised in New York, live in Philadelphia. I'm in Las Vegas now for an event. And, one of the things that come up from watching the video is that facts tell and stories sell, right? Just hearing the story, the deaths, the births, the life cycle, and being able to navigate all of the external things that have happened and still keeping your eyes on the prize in terms of building a company. And I compare that to life. I mean, one of the things I do are career assessments, and really looking at one of the things that we talk about in assessment circles, whether it's Myers-Briggs, Career Direct, is that if you stay within, you'll never go without, right? So really being able to withstand all of the things that happen. There's times that things are changing all the time. I mean, even with AI, right? It's really just technology. And I remember having a conversation with Stanley. Like, Stanley, it's amazing that you're able to use all of these different technology tools. And I said, oh, and it, but that was his design, because he went on to tell me the story that, oh, Carla, I was using the first computer back in the 80s. And, so he's willing to navigate all of the different changes. And that's what I saw with Hasbro as well. And that's what I see with the new onset of AI, right? We can call it different things, but at the end of the day, we are responsible for building up our best asset, which is ourselves. Those are all external tools that we have to be able to assess. And like Stephen Covey says in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, sharpen the saw. So it's continually looking out on the horizon and seeing what we have to do. But in all cases, we have to remain resilient. And that's why I've been here for the past 7 years, because resilience, it sounds simple, but it's not easy, right? There's 12 to 13 skill sets that we have to practice. It's the what you've been talking about recently is the offense. I always think of Travis, the person that won the Heisman Trophy, that plays both sides of the ball, right? Where there's offensive type of resilience that we have to build up, and preventative, defensive. Oh, it's coming, so get stronger. We can't control some of the things that come our way, but we have to be able to navigate that. So again, thank you for creating the space and the skills and the practice field, right, for us to become more resilient. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Carla, and all the best out Vegas. And it's amazing that wherever many of you, wherever you may go, you're tuning in. Gloria Hairston of Winston-Salem Black Chamber of Commerce, she and another member, Dean Cox, wherever they are, they're trying to tune in to. And so, Carla, thank you for all that you do, and your consistent. We celebrate now 7 years, and you've been here from almost the very first show that we did. We'll go through the story. Kind of accidentally got here, and you stayed with. Yeah, the Hasbro again saw that now, but they had their tough times, and as George mentioned, as Carla mentioned, they had to find ways to navigate through those tough times, using weapons weren't available then, but guess what? They were available. They just weren't written down and placed in research. But the brothers Hassenfeld and their children and grandchildren, possessed that emotion regulation when things were getting tough and they were losing money. You had these iconic toys Mr. Potato Head, and we were very successful. But at the same time, in that decade, in the 70s, if Alan was still alive, he can probably tell you, because he was at Penn in 1970. So he was there in the 70s. The discussions they may have had about bankruptcy and maybe folding, closing the doors. And there are many other times that we don't know about. So that emotion regulation, that impulse control, to say or do the first thing that comes to mind. Is, hey, we're losing all this money. Let's sell the company. Let's close that empathy, that self-efficacy, that belief that we can get through it. Let our ancestors down. They started this thing, 1923. We got to keep moving. They had the optimism. No matter what, it's going to be successful. And in the 80s and 90s, they started buying other companies, other iconic brands. And then, of course, the causal analysis. Let's get to the root cause of this. Let's fix it. And reaching out. I'm sure they had their lawyers and other folks that they called upon. So let's go to Leslie Flowers. Leslie, thank you so much for having me on your Matters 10 a.m. And Think and Grow Rich program as well on Fridays at 10 a.m. Thanks. Let's get your thoughts about the Hasenfeld brothers, HASBRO. Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you, Carla, for not being one of the contestants, because with 7 years under your
Oh, it sounds. Oh man, I don't know what happened. Folks on the phone line. Anyone else? Everybody else can hear? Can you hear Leslie? Now, yeah, we can hear you now. Yep.
Okay. So you heard me say that I'm glad that Carla is not a contestant? Yes. No, you didn't hear that. You did hear that. Okay. Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay. So a couple of things here that's really interesting. I wrote down all the dates of Hasbro because I wanted to look at all the different things starting in 1942, which was the first time they became a toy company, but they failed to say when the company actually began. So I've got to go back into that again. So from 1942 all the way to the 70s, it was smooth sailing. It is clear, though, when they hit the 70s, there were two different recalls, as you alluded to. And one, think about this, is 50 years ago, 55 years ago. One was a $1 million recall, and the other one was $2.5 million. Now, let me just move Dr. Marcia. Dr. Marcia. So, okay, so at that point, there would have been a question whether or not their definite purpose, whatever that was initially, it could be what our guest said. I'm sorry, I can't see the names on the screen now, so I'm sorry. What is the gentleman's name that's joined Carla and I? I can't see his name.
That's George.
George. That's right. Okay,
Yeah.
George. I just remember George Washington. That's all I have to do is I'll think about you as George Washington. So the thing here is that was their definite purpose, the thing that had them begin, and particularly when it turned into a toy company, did they have a strong enough desire and a clear enough purpose? Because when push comes to shove, and my expertise is in the principles of success and a number of other things, but one thing's for sure, the people that were running this company had a laser focus picture of what they wanted, and fear was not an issue for them, particularly when they had two recalls. And that would have been, like you said, Stanley, that they would have gone out of business. But then, the universe is good and it operates on laws. So for every low, if you stay with it, you just won't know when, there will be a matching high, right? So by not quitting, then the pendulum moves back up and into their high, which continued on right then with G.I. Joe as an example. And then a few years later, they acquired Milton Bradley, changed the name to Hasbro, but then they faced another one of these. Okay, so this is what's so important, because your definite purpose, legacy, whatever it is, making money, changing the world, is strong enough during these times when our fear of poverty, and which is real, really pops up and convinces us that maybe this is a good idea to let this thing drop. But they didn't. So the next thing that happened was in the late 80s, in 88, or 86 and 88, they came up with hey, Sherry, they came up with a match to Barbie, because remember, Barbie was not Hasbro. Barbie was Mattel, but it was a complete flop. So that was another time when they went after Barbie that they could have quit easily. And listen, we're talking millions and billions in these transactions. So honest to goodness, if they had stepped away at any time, they would not have been hurt by it. But what happened here is that their desire was beyond money. Their desire had turned into legacy. And I just love that, because I'm part of an anthology each Christmas time, roughly at the end of the year, as our legacy. And I was thinking, as I get older, my grandkids aren't paying much attention to what I'm doing. I write it down. So I think that the takeaway from all of this, they tried to take over Mattel, and I don't remember what happened there, but their My Little Pony moved into TV. So here's the thing. What we get from this is, when you go after something, make sure that the reason is heart-centered. It might have been money for them. And I also will refer you to the story of Coca-Cola. The same thing. Yeah, bring everybody back. But if you look at what happened with Coca-Cola, it provided jobs, and still does today, around the world. So, and Henry Ford also had the same challenge when he instructed his engineers to go make an 8-cylinder engine block. And he's not an engineer. So I love how power thinking interlaces with the principles of success. Thanks, guys, for letting me share.
Oh, thank you, Leslie. Yeah, much appreciated. You mentioned design. I remember, reading the book Thinking Rich way back in the 80s and really internalizing everything. And the decade of the 90s were absolute. There was another book, actually, cassette set back then, called The Psychology of Achievement by Brian Tracy. But there was one thing that they had in common, and that was the power of, and here we are with power thinking.
Stanley, excuse me for interrupting, but I want you to know that Brian Tracy was weaned on Think and Grow Rich. That's where Brian Tracy
he was. Sure.
Yes. So I just wanted you to know, most of the personal development greats today that have made a lot of money, that was their primer. So sorry for interrupting, but I wanted to share that. You knew that already.
Oh, no, of course. Well, look, we were talking about the 1930s with Leslie.
Yeah, the 1930s, absolutely.
Yeah, so everyone that came after, no doubt, had gone and grew up on Think and Grow Rich. But again, it gets back to our thinking. What are we thinking about? We have these 50,000 thoughts a day, and because they identified that 70 to 80% of our thoughts are typically negative. So we need to work extra hard to ensure that we're staying positive, that we continue to have that boss, the founder, and I was his chief lieutenant back in the 90s, one of his chief lieutenants back in the 90s, and I was with him when he sold to Comcast and came away with $2.5 billion. But whenever he was looking to during the dot-com bubble, got involved in something I was doing. He actually invested in a company I was involved with called Sprint Turf. Actually, it was a kind of a group that bought it and brought me in to take it over. But I'll never forget, kind of look for what he called the fire in. Do you that you can make this happen? I remember, during the whole internet days, when we made and we were trying to take over a a failing company. I don't know anything about the internet, but do you believe that you can make this company work? And I said, yes. And he looked me in the eye. And so that fire in the belly, that desire is really where it all began. But you have to have this burning desire that and all of the setbacks that you can. Now, you may not, you may fail, you may fall on your face, but you have to start with that belief, that burning desire. As Jerry Lenfest always said, that fire. So we're out of time, and I just want to thank those folks who joined us, Nicole and Natasha. I saw that you were on the phone lines. You joined us on LinkedIn, and Olu and Lisa. Dr. Marcia had David out of Thailand, and Sherry Aquari out of Nairobi, Kenya. Anybody, folks, let me know. Chime in and let me know. Really appreciate it. And as I bring this back on our phone lines, I want to thank those folks, first of all, on Carla and George and Leslie for your valuable input, and our folks, we open it back up. We want to thank you all for joining us. And remember, since we spend all of our time thinking, we need to think with power and utilize power thinking. Join us tonight for Jeopardy, folks. We call Zoom for D. And let's see who's going to win that. And we have Leslie Flowers. And we will, Natasha Charles, as 9:30. Who will be the winner? Thanks, Linda Gray. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Greg Jones, others I mentioned before we got. I see you there. And make it a fantastic day, everybody, and we will talk to you soon. Appreciate you. And our studio, as we've ended the call, thank you so much. A lot going on, and you hung in there with us. You kept this thing moving. We appreciate you stretching and getting outside of the comfort zone. We did it through Leslie. That was the first time I was going up to one person. So Leslie, it's just that I thought about it. I said, hey, let's see if so we'll focus. So we'll be doing that now as we go along, and every one of you across the 3 platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, for being with us. Make it a fantastic day, and we will see you soon. Take care.